you always a dark roast?
Yes.
Dude?
Yeah, I prefer dark roast.
I do this, it's like the variety package or whatever through Black Rifle. And it's kind of cool because every month they send me 2 bags. I'm on a 2 bag a month plan. And every month they send me something different. It's really cool. So this month I got their Just Black, which is I think it's actually a medium roast. I'll have to double check it, but they sent me the other one. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it now, but it's a dark roast, and I like to mix it up.
Yeah.
I like dark roast, and so, yeah. What did you say this one was?
It's called Komodo Dragon.
Komodo Dragon. It's going to be like jumper cables on my nipples or
something?
something?
Yeah, something like that.
Jumper cable. So 3 cups of coffee, one of them being jumper cables, and 2 nicotine pouches. Woo! We're ready to go.
Ready to go.
All right.
Target south, 23,000. 21 target north, group stack 36,000, 13,000. Bang, 40 scope, short skate, hot, right.
This is the Be One Change One podcast, where our mission is to help listeners define values, practice integrity, and inspire change.
Our vision is to mentor men and empower them to achieve more by taking responsibility for shaping their own lives.
He's CAS, an evolving man who has been shaped by adversity and continues to grow through his imperfections.
And he's Roscoe, an imperfect work in progress that tries to suck less every day.
Between us, we have over 40 years of Air Force fighter pilot experience with countless hours as trainers, instructors, and mentors.
Join us and learn to take responsibility for your own life as we dive into subjects from leadership to resilience to vulnerability.
Be the one who changes their course. Be decisive, driven, and purposeful. Set the example for others. Lead. We wish we'd had this show when we were younger men.
Be the one.
All right. So, not really a cool guy story, but we'll kick off this episode with this. So, Katie and I, this was 2010. November of 2010. Thanksgiving week, actually. It was Thanksgiving week 2010. And we decided to take a cruise. Short cruise, small boat. That was the last cruise that boat was on. I can't remember the name of it, but small boat through Carnival. We cruised out of Mobile. We're going out the bay. It's the first night or whatever. And Katie and I showered up, went down. We sat up on the deck and watched the land go away and shit, had our drinks or whatever. Go down, shower up, and we head down to the piano bar. We're sitting at the piano bar, and Katie goes, we're starting to have a little bit of fun, and we're looking to, make some boat friends. She goes, hey, why don't you ask that guy where he's from? So I punched the guy in the arm. He's sitting right next to me. I punched the guy in the arm. Hey, where are you from? Georgia. And I looked at Katie and said, he's from Georgia. And I went back to doing what I was doing. Well, then Katie got up and started a conversation with him. We partied like rock stars that week, like college kids. We let it all hang out. I'll tell you some offline stories that were fairly comical and maybe even a little, R-rated, maybe R+ rated. But the intent was we were never going to see these people again. They're our cruise friends. Maybe we friend each other on Facebook or something.
Yeah.
And that was it. Katie was just at their house last week. This is 13 years later. They ended up being like some of our best friends. We've met up all over the country and gone on trips together. We went to Cancun a few years later. We've met up in Vegas. They've been to our house. We've been to their house a bunch. They're just outside of Atlanta. And just great people. What's the point of the story, Roscoe? The point is there was an opportunity there. And that's what this episode's going to be about, is opportunities and how to recognize them and how to take them. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, but opportunities are cool and they can lead to really cool things like lifelong best friends.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the thing about opportunity too is sometimes it can be hard to recognize. And I think some people think that they have to wait for opportunity, and sometimes opportunity is what you create, right? So a lot of times opportunity for it to happen is going to take some action on your part.
Yeah.
And we'll go through some different things today. One thing that you're going to see, though, as we go through this, is there's a lot of stuff that's kind of duplicative. There's a lot of skills. There's a lot of things that are tied and related to opportunity that we've already talked about. We've already talked about. Like Roscoe likes to say, that big old knot. So as you guys start to build some of these skills, you're going to start to see the fruition of a lot of these things.
That is like jumper cables, man.
It's good, isn't it?
Ooh, yeah. Like it. No, that's good, dude. I think that I love how so far and for the foreseeable future, everything just kind of piles on right here.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're going to get down into today is how to recognize opportunity. But I want you to realize just right out the gate that almost all of this comes down to you as an individual doing the fucking work. Like if you do the work and you carry yourself appropriately, you set yourself apart from your peers, you walk the talk, you look the part, your body language is great. All these things are going to open up doors for you. And then we'll get into the secondary pieces of how to take that opportunity and all that. But I love I just love at the root of it, it all comes down to that individual effort that you're willing to give.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what are we going to start with? Definition of opportunity. You got a good academic definition of opportunity?
Like just a baseline dictionary definition of opportunity is a set of circumstances that makes it possible to do something, which I think is kind of vanilla or vague.
It was like a Webster, something like, that's good.
But
got a cool quote here, man. So there's the Seneca quote. So Seneca, the Roman philosopher, he says that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, but I think you can flip that around and say opportunity, just replace opportunity and luck. And there's some things I think that go into luck as well. So maybe just an alternate definition of that.
Yeah, say that one more time.
Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah, well, opportunity is a combination of preparation and luck, right?
Yeah, I've always kind of said that opportunity is a combination of luck and timing, and then you can further break out luck as being a combination of preparation and timing.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe something like that. And then I liked this one. I found this quote last night from Bobby Unser, who was a pretty famous race car driver. Success is where preparation and opportunity meet. Through all of those definitions, academic, philosopher, whichever one you want to take, what's one of the common threads, though? The preparation piece of it, right? So back to that individual effort and how much are you willing to put into this so that when that door does open, you're ready to walk through it.
Yeah. And I think what I'll say on that is, and I'm getting ahead of what we have on the show notes, but that's okay. So one of the things that I was going to talk about today is if you want to have opportunity in your life, or if you're seeking opportunity in your life, you got to get in the arena. We've talked about this before, right? So don't sit on the sidelines. A lot of opportunity that you are going to get in your life is going to be opportunity that in some ways you make for yourself. So what do I mean by that? You got to get out of your comfort zone. If you're fat, dumb, and happy at work and very comfortable and you're just going through the grind and you're not stepping outside of your comfort zone and doing things to try to take on additional tasks or to highlight yourself, like we've talked about in previous episodes, different ways that you can show up and do good work and kind of set yourself apart, then if you're in that situation and you're not seeing opportunity, there's probably a reason for it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of levels into this too, like the preparation, the hard work that it takes to get there, the planning, the persistence, the decision-making. And then there's the people you surround yourself with. Are you putting yourself in the places that you want to be so that maybe these opportunities come up? And there's kind of that famous thing that's floating around out there where it's like, if you want to be a millionaire, hang out with millionaires. What's that all about, man? Those guys are going to open up opportunities for you. They're going to teach you a lot of good skills and how they got to where they're at, but they're also going to introduce you to people. They're going to provide you with maybe a class or a course that you can take, a seminar, something like that, that can get you on that road.
Yeah, and what I would say is something that we've said in previous episodes as well. So if you're in a place that you're not enjoying and you want to move out into another opportunity, well, what are you doing to affect that? You know, are you applying at places that are in line with maybe the opportunity that you're seeking and seeing if, you know, you get a chance to come in and interview? Have you tried to find a mentor that works in that area and offered to buy them a cup of coffee and started picking their brain and finding out, hey, what are the prerequisites I need to do? What are the things that I can do on my own to set myself up so that I can have that opportunity, so that I can get that interview?
Yeah.
In some ways, you got to ask questions. You got to get outside your comfort zone. You got to be vulnerable in that process, have a little courage over comfort, you know, seek people out, ask the appropriate questions, and then pick a direction and move out on it.
Yeah, if you take a piece of paper and you draw a circle and write the word comfort in it, opportunities lie outside of that circle.
Yeah.
So you've got to make some moves here. You got some do. And why is this important? Like, why are we even broaching this subject? And I wrote down a couple of notes on it, and I just wanted to go over the why real quick, and then I want you to tell that Danny story that you told me earlier.
Okay.
Right. The reason that we want to discuss this is, again, targeting some younger men here who are maybe in that transition from, say, high school into adulthood and real life, trying to find out your purpose and your passion and where you want to go and your professions and all that. This is going to open up doors for you. This is going to introduce you to people who can provide those opportunities. It's going to offer new possibilities that maybe you didn't even know existed. And in that, maybe you find your purpose. There are a lot of new roads that you could potentially go down, all these little spider web routes that you could try out. And eventually you're looking for the advancement and the betterment of yourself, both personally and professionally, your quality of life. Maybe you're providing for a family. You're looking to climb that ladder. And that all comes back to taking advantage of these opportunities, getting outside of that circle and looking for these places where you can make a slight improvement.
Yeah. And here's one story that can kind of illuminate that stepping outside your comfort zone piece. So my youngest son, Daniel, is in a digital design and animation program in college right now. And he's starting his second year and looking for opportunities, ways that he can kind of explore different aspects of that career field, get some exposure to some things to try to start to figure out hey, what are the things that I like about this and what are the things that I don't like, so that as he gets down the road on his degree, he can kind of have a better feel for maybe which direction he wants to go with it all.
Yeah.
Once he graduates. And so we were talking this summer, and he had a professor that he kind of became friends with last year that he really enjoyed. And they had a pretty good little professional student professor banter going back and forth. And I said, well, why don't you sit down and send that professor an email, because he's staff, and ask him if any of the professors in the digital design program right now are working on a research project or some kind of project for the school that they need help with, and see if, you can, as a student, join the team that's working on whatever it is that they're doing, and, tell them you'll do digital design work, you'll do research for them, you'll bring coffee to people, whatever it takes, just to get some exposure, because you're trying to get a little bit more of an idea of exactly what are the different avenues that I can go down with this type of degree. And so he did. He sent an email, and it was a couple of days before his professor got back to him. This is before term started. But the professor got back to him and he goes, yeah, as a matter of fact, there's this project that we have coming up. I think it's attached to the business school, and they're doing this whole marketing thing with a bunch of digital design aspects to it. And they're just waiting for approval from the school to start moving out to it. So once they get approval, then Danny's going to be a part of that team, and he's going to be able to do those kinds of things. And that took an email. It took stepping out of his comfort zone a little bit, putting himself out there. The nice thing is, and what we talked about was, if your professor comes back and says no,
didn't really lose anything.
You don't lose anything.
Yeah.
You're exactly where you were when we started this conversation,
exactly.
Right? But that's not where it's going. So he's going to have a really cool opportunity coming up here to be able to do that.
So what happens if you send out 1,000 emails? Like I have this friend over in California that's an entrepreneur, and he's gotten a lot of really good, opportunities, for lack of a better word, because one of his strategies is he'll just sit down and send out 1,000 emails in a day. Well, you send out 1,000 emails, and maybe they're canned, maybe they're automated, whatever, but you get a couple of people to bite and you're winning. If nobody bites, you get up and do it again tomorrow, but let's say that you send out 1,000 emails every day for a week. That's 5,000 emails. That's 5,000 people you contacted, and you can get a few of those to respond to you. These are how opportunities are created. And we've got some things moving behind the scenes in the Be One Change One podcast that all came down to just reaching out to somebody. I was a little bit uncomfortable about it because I don't ever do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it opened up a pretty good opportunity.
Well, here's another story when it comes to like the mentorship piece that we talk about. So my oldest son, David, has been thinking about getting in the military and not really sure about what branch he may want to go into, what specifically he may want to do. And he was bartending at the time, and there was this regular guy that came in. He's in North Carolina. And long story short, he ends up talking to this guy. Well, this guy was a Green Beret. And he and David start talking. I think David asked him if he wanted to go get coffee sometime or took him to lunch or something.
Easy,
so they went and had coffee or lunch, or maybe it was just a phone call. I don't remember. But they got to talking. Well, it turns out that this guy is just recently retired from the Berets. He was an instructor at the Green Beret school. So he knows what like all the initial training's about. He knows a bunch of guys on the team still. Gets to talking to David, goes, this is a kid I think it would be good for the program, and so he's like taking him under his wing, and he's took him to brag, and he met
great.
with
he's got a mentor now, and
he's got a mentor.
Yeah.
He took him and had him talk to the in-service recruiter for the Green Beret program. And that guy's working on getting him in touch with an outside recruiter that can get him basically like a spot to go right into the selection program out of boot camp. And so all of these things are working now, you know, and it's been a few month process as he's gotten into this, but it all started out with a conversation at a bar and then hey man, can we get together sometime and can I pick your brain on this? Cause this is something that I'm kind of interested in. And it was neat cause I texted the guy and told him, you know, hey, thanks for mentoring him. You know, I go, that's something that younger kids really need. And he goes, you know, if I see somebody who I think would ever be good for the selection in the program, he goes, I'm always going to encourage them and do what I can. He goes, cause I know what the teams need and I know what they're looking for. And I have a pretty good, and you know how it is as an instructor, you can, you know, in 30 seconds, if a guy's got what it takes or not. Right. Exactly. So, so I tell that story just to go that's where the opportunities lies. And that's where just reaching out to somebody who's in that and asking questions and then seeing where it goes from there could be a huge opportunity for you to set you on that path.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. And it doesn't stop there. So he did the right initial actions, right? He stepped out of his comfort zone. He talked to the guy, went and got the cup of coffee, et cetera, et cetera. He's still got work to do on the back end.
A lot of work.
He's got to be able to rise up to that opportunity when that door opens, and it will. I mean, the guy's going to take care of him. He's going to introduce him to the right people, get his paperwork right. He's going to get him through. His path is going to be cleared for him, but you still have to walk down that path.
Yep, he's still got to complete it all.
Shaq. That's one of the key pieces of this opportunity stuff that we're going to talk about. And in a minute, we're going to get into 6 or 8 different things that you can do to potentially either recognize, create, or take an opportunity. But one of those that it's going to loom over this entire conversation is you have to do the work. You have to be prepared. And I told you this story earlier when somebody calls me up and says, hey, we're going to pay you a bunch of money to come and do this public speaking gig. Dude, you better be ready. When that phone call comes, you better be ready. When David gets that call from the Green Berets, he better have been doing ruck marches for about 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, he's already working on the physical fitness stuff, which is important, right? Because just like you're saying, that's the preparation piece, right? Yeah. He's got to do what he can to be prepared to step into that opportunity once that door opens.
That's right. So speaking of opening doors, let's start at the top of the list there and just go through a few things that can kind of set us up for either recognizing, creating, or taking opportunities.
Well, we've said this before, and I'm sure we're going to say it multiple times again. And I think it all starts with understanding who you are, because anything that you do should be done knowing or at least having a sense of who you are and what you want, right? And if you don't know that for yourself, then go listen to episode 5 and figure out how to define your values. You know, figure out self-inspection in episode 4 and then how to define your own personal values, because that's going to be that lantern that you can have that'll illuminate the steps in front of you so that you can make really good decisions that are going to align with your personal beliefs and your personal value system.
That decision-making piece is going to be a whole separate discussion here in a little while, but just while we're on the kind of the personal development piece of it is you may have to learn some new skills. Like we'll use David as an example right now. When he initially starts out, he's probably going to have to learn how to do that ruck jog. And I mean, there's a lot of technique behind it. I had to learn it when I went to the air assault school. There's a lot of technique behind carrying, 60 pounds on your back, fully kitted up, and being able to jog 12 miles in 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, some of the guys that he's talked to, and this is again, how that mentorship piece works with a guy that he met, they're like, you don't need to go to the gym and start doing a whole bunch of heavy lifting. You need to go grab 45-pound weights and go walk for as long as you can. Yeah. Holding the 45-pound weights, right?
Work on your flexibility.
All of that stuff, right? And so they're already telling him if you want to get through selection, these are the things to do, Yeah. And all that's good feedback for him, right? It's all things that he can work on now. It's all little tips and tricks that he can put into the back of his mind for if and when he chooses to do this and he's going through selection, he'll be able to go, oh yeah, they told me about this and here's what I need to focus on. We've talked about one of the things that you've mentioned on the podcast, and I told him, I said, your mantra, if you choose to do this, your mantra through that selection program is left foot, right foot.
That's got to be it, man. Kill the closest alligator to the boat.
Yeah.
There's a guy on social media and all kind of plastered all over the internet. His name's Chad Wright, and if you guys haven't heard of him, he's worth a Google. All right. One of the things, I was watching one of his videos and he's given this presentation, but one of the things that he was talking about was going through BUDS training. And this is how you break things down so simply and keep your front sight focus, right? His goal every morning was to make it to breakfast.
Yeah.
That's it. And once you make it to breakfast, you eat breakfast, and what's the next evolution?
Just get to the next evolution.
Get to the pad and get information. Get to the pad. Okay, great. This is what I told Colin when he went to basic training. I was like, dude, just every morning when you wake up, your first goal is to get dressed correctly. That's it. Get downstairs and get information and be there as quickly as you can before anyone. If you can just do that, then you're winning, right? And then the next one is listen to the people's instruction, right? If they say left foot march, then you go left foot march, right? If it's get to breakfast, then get to breakfast. And you break your day up, you break your goals up in these very small, very, very tangible, edible pieces, and you can get through this. For his thing with the ruck march, it's going to be, maybe he doesn't start out with 60 pounds. Maybe he starts out with 20 pounds and he just learns the technique and builds up some endurance.
Well, it's just mental toughness too. That's why you do those things, because instead of the entire day feeling completely overwhelming because you're exhausted and you don't know if you can do anymore, you just focus on the next evolution. You just focus on what's in front of you and you focus on getting through that. And then now you gotten through that. Okay, now I focus on the next thing. Next thing you know, half the day's gone, and so that's how it works. It's just that, and it's that drive, it's that fortitude, that personal fortitude and drive to just go, have a little belief in yourself. It's going to suck.
Yeah.
And this is true in life. It's not just in the military stuff, right? There's going to be times when you're just nugging through it, man, and it sucks. Yeah. But it's a little bit of left foot, right foot. It's a little bit of how can I get better? What can I do better? How do I improve where I'm at? And then seek out opportunity around myself.
Yeah, that's a great mental toughness discussion. I think maybe we'll tackle another episode one day and just deep dive into that and, the self-discipline that takes and everything. But to bring it back straight up to opportunities and how to recognize, create, or take an opportunity, specifically talking about the skills that you may have to build. Well, you might not even know what those skills are until the opportunity arises. And I'll give you an example. Nikki called me the other day and said that he had to go brief somebody. They had an inspection, and he was tasked with going and back briefing the people to let them know how the inspection went. So he goes in and he briefs the guy up, and the guy was really impressed with him. I guess he carried himself well, and he was articulate, and I don't know, Nikki's a good kid. But the guy made a kind of a glancing comment like, oh man, that was really awesome. You should come and work for me. Dude, that's an opportunity right there. Recognize that, okay? Now you have no idea what that's going to look like. He just made that one comment. You don't know what this guy's complete job description is. You don't know if you're going to be the coffee fetcher or the report writer or whatever. You may have to learn some new skills, but it starts with recognizing that opportunity for what it is. That was the door for a conversation. Well, tell me what that might look like. What do you have in mind? And start that conversation with him, start to ask those questions, and then identify the skills required to meet that expectation that he's laid out in front of you.
Well, and there's always going to be skills to develop and skills to fine tune. And I think you get better at recognizing that and developing that as you get older and move through some stuff. But with opportunity too, there may be some inherent skills that you have that you're not even aware of. So in Nikki's case, he's probably a really good briefer because he's comfortable standing up in front of people
he's very
speaking,
confident,
and he's confident, right? Yeah. Maybe he doesn't really recognize that about himself. So getting that feedback from somebody about, man, you did that really well, might have kind of caught him by surprise, right? My point in that is, if you are skilled or interested in something, like let's say you're interested in biology and maybe one of your values is helping other people. Well, maybe you should look into medical or nursing school.
Yeah, potentially.
As opposed to going into graphic design like Danny has. And if you don't know what your skills are, find some trusted agents. Find some people that you trust and ask the question. Go, hey, what do you admire about me? What do you think I'm good at? What are the skills that that you think I possess that are
ask your boss for feedback.
Yeah, get feedback. Yeah. And then that might help you determine, okay, here's some things that I do well. So how can I maybe even use those to my advantage as I look for opportunities to move into? Because I know we all have some inherent skills. It could be writing. It could be, some inherent leadership traits, speaking, preparation. That we all have some inherent skills to us that we've learned. Those can help propel us into opportunities as well.
Well, if you're a young man, you may be kind of cliche to talk about this, especially since we just did an episode a while back about 10 things that require no talent, but you may be relying on talent right now. you may just be gifted in talking to people, and you may have the gift of gab, or you may be one of those people who's very comfortable standing up in front. I was like that. I was always very comfortable standing up in front of people and talking. It never bothered me. I never got stage fright. I never got tremendous anxiety in that. Even when I wasn't prepared, I was always confident in my raw talent and being able to stand up and deliver something. Well, I took that talent and I developed the skill around that to be able to get up and give a good BFM briefing, for example,
Right.
or a good mission briefing or something like that. So take that talent that you have. Maybe Nicky was just talented in being able to talk to people. Maybe that's one of his things. He's very comfortable just having a discussion face to face with somebody. And if you take that and develop the skill around it, well, now you're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of your peers when they're competing for the same projects.
Yeah, and I'll use Danny as an example again. So Danny's very creative, and two, kind of artistic, which I don't know where he gets it from because I'm neither one of those things. But when he was in high school, at the high school they had a signature architecture program that was like number one in the country for several years. And he was really initially interested in architecture. And it was cool, man. His first couple years in the program, he was like coming home with designs of houses that he had built, and they had all the drafting software and stuff on the computers there. And the guy that was in charge of it in Daniel's junior year, that was the last year that he taught. And so the senior year, they didn't have it anymore. And it was over the summer of his junior to senior year that Daniel got a scholarship to go to one of the top 5 architecture schools, Ivy League school in New York. He got a $150,000 scholarship to go to that
You
school.
guys got to stop throwing around your fucking 130 IQs around the room, man.
I know. No, and it was just because he had done some really good work. And
that's awesome.
The teacher for that signature program had put him in for this scholarship opportunity. And so we get this back. We're all excited. And he comes to me about a week later and he goes, "Dad, I don't think I want to be an architect." And I'm like, "Okay, well," so we talk about it, and he's like, "Super creative kid. You go into architecture, there's a good chance, at least for the first several years, unless you kind of just set yourself apart as like one of these super duper architects, that you're just doing standard prints and plots for basic houses and stuff like that.
Doing a lot of
not a lot of creativity in that, right?
Doing a lot of work on
nug
CAD
work and everything like that, right? So he wanted to explore the digital design and animation stuff. He's really interested in doing GCI and animation. And so we started looking into that, and that's where he's at now. So
yeah, that's cool.
My point in that story, though, is right. He knew he was creative. He likes to express himself in that manner. And so he decided to shift. He made a pivot and shifted into something that allows him to pursue that creative aspect of himself to a greater extent. And dude, he's loved the degree program that he's been in so far.
That's great. Well, let's stick on that for a second, and let's go back to the architecture piece of it. All right. If you're looking to, if you're aspiring to a career, like I would encourage any young man to try to nail down what it is you want to do for a profession versus a job. And I think those two things are very different. A profession, I think, is something that you can hold on to for a couple of decades, climb a ladder, provide for your family, etc. Versus a job is something that probably doesn't have any upward mobility. It probably doesn't give you a lot of fulfillment. It's just something that kills your time and gives you enough to pay your bills kind of thing. So let's just differentiate those for what they are. But when you're starting out something, for example, the architecture, as a young person, there's probably going to be some element of paying your dues,
there is,
and doing the bitch work, and just
that's
doing
called
the
snacko in a fighter squadron.
Exactly, man. You got to be the coffee getter. But Nick Saban was telling this story about, and I think he was quoting someone else when he said this, and I know I'm going to get blasted for this, but anyways, he says something to the effect of, if you're tasked with being the coffee getter, then you should get coffee so good that they put a sign in front of your hometown that says the best coffee getter in the world lives here. That's the expectation that you need to have out of yourself. And that comes back to putting in the work, putting in the effort, knowing that if you do that, you're going to get recognized by your leadership, by your management team, and those opportunities are going to start to come open.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. People are paying attention. Even in the menial stuff, people
Everything
that are in
matters.
charge of you are watching.
Everything matters.
So, so that would be the first thing, I think, though, is understanding who you are. because knowing that, understanding maybe the inherent skills you have, what your value system is, what's important to you, what you like, and then from there, what skills do I need? What things do I need to do? You know, Danny couldn't just walk into doing GCI and animation. He's got to go through this degree program and learn the inherent skills and how to work the software and all those things that are required. But he loves it and it's enjoyable to him. So he doesn't mind. Like, this degree program has been really fun.
He's
for him.
passionate about it. That's awesome.
He's
So
passionate
I mean, this bleeds right into the second point here. And the second point is going to be believe in what you offer and outwork those around you. Believe in your value. How much value do you have for, you know, job X or profession X or opportunity X? It doesn't matter. But if you're gonna step into this, know your value, man. Know your worth. That's not to say that you don't have to pay your dues and occasionally you have to take out the trash. I told the story earlier about, you know, having to clean toilets. I thought that I had more value than that, but guess what, man? It was my turn.
Yeah.
How do you not clean toilets again? Do hard work. Do a little bit extra. Go back and listen to the 10 Things That Require No Talent episode and learn some of those things that you can do that go above and beyond, so that the next time it is your time to clean toilets, maybe they have something else for you to do.
Yeah, and so set yourself apart in that sense, right? When you add value to a team, that value is going to propel you in different directions.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably also going to open up different opportunities for you. Let's be real, though, too. There may be personality conflicts. There may be situations where,
It's valid. Yeah.
you know, you're adding value to the team, but you're not getting any of the opportunity, or maybe, you know, a person just doesn't.
Could be a
who's
good old
in
boy
charge.
crew.
Yeah, it could be a good old boy club, and you're not part of the club.
Yeah.
What do you do in those situations? Well, that's where I would remind people that by showing up, doing good work, adding value to the team, maintaining a positive mental attitude, dressing appropriately, having good demeanor, all of those things, continue to do that even in the midst of those things, because you never know who else around you is paying attention. And so I'll give a story on that. When I was working in politics, I was working for a representative from the 28th Legislative District in the state of Washington. And we were working on some legislation for the district that we were also working with the congressman back in D.C., who the 28th Legislative District fell underneath. His district overlapped ours. So we were doing some work back and forth with their team on this specific piece of legislation. Ended up working it through committee, the floor of the House, through committee process in the Senate, the floor of the Senate, conference committee, got it passed. Well, in the midst of all that, I was kind of the honcho. I was the guy that was leading it up for the representative that I was working for. And I was working with the staff on the congressman's staff at the federal level. And I had no idea, but his chief of staff was watching me this whole time and approached me after the fact and offered me a job back in DC working for them. You know, and so even though where I was at that point in time, there wasn't a lot of maybe upward mobility or opportunity for me for what I was doing outside of maybe moving into some certain caucus positions, which I wasn't really interested in at the time. That was a huge opportunity for me.
Yeah.
You know, and it had nothing to do with my direct leadership or who I was working for at the time. It just had everything to do with how I showed up and how I worked.
Yeah, you were doing the right things.
And just my day-to-day stuff. So
you were doing the right things. You look the part, you act the part, your body language is good. You clearly put out good product and gave a lot of effort, and those things stand out, man.
Yeah.
Especially for the young men in this current generation that's coming up. I don't think we can put enough emphasis on these things to let you know that, man, these things can discriminate you really fast from the other people. I got so many stories from young men right now that I'm mentoring and coaching through some different times in their lives that if you just do the little things, not a lot of people are doing that. Hey, Caleb was just telling me this weekend or the other night, we were talking on the phone for a long time, and he was just telling me about one of his people that he's been hanging out with. They have a lot of performance anxiety just talking to another person face to face. Behind a screen, texting, Instagramming, or whatever the young people are doing nowadays, Snapchatting, I guess, they're fine. And they'll write paragraph after paragraph after paragraph and communicate that way. But you sit down face to face with them and they clam up. and they can't no eye contact. I mean, look at what you and I are doing right now. Eye contact, listening to each other, communicating back and forth.
Right.
And the young kids don't know how to do that. So if you can develop these skills, young person, young man who's trying to make it in the world, that discriminates you. That sets you apart from somebody else.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows too, I wasn't 35 when I was doing that. I was 21 years old.
Yeah, see?
Going to college. I didn't have a degree.
Yeah.
None of that.
And all you were doing was wearing pressed slacks and saying yes sir and no sir,
Yeah.
and getting coffee better than anybody else.
And getting stuff done. That was it. So
I want to read this quote, man. And I put this in my first book that I put out, No New Lessons. But I think this draws some really good lines of parallel. This is from Clay Hayes, who was the Alone season 8 winner. If you haven't seen the show Alone, it's pretty cool. It's a survival show on Netflix. But he says, "There's a place called adventure that lives just on the horizon. It calls us forth over the next ridge and around the next bend. It's where life's good stories live, the ones that will be told around campfires for a lifetime and more. But adventure doesn't give up her secrets easily. She keeps them hidden from all but the most willing to pay the asking price." And I put a big circle around that when I read that this morning about that. He's talking about opportunities right there. Yeah, I mean, he's framing it in an adventure sense, but when you talk about these opportunities, you have to be willing to do the work and look at the horizon and go, what's next?
yeah, and the other thing I would say too is that's part of that, and it'll kind of piggyback on the DC opportunity story is also don't be afraid to say no.
Valid.
Right. So
Yeah.
if you have an opportunity that's taking you away from maybe what that goal is or takes you in a different direction, don't be afraid to say no, because in the midst of all of that conversation and that opportunity to go back into DC, in the back of my mind was the nagging of, what about the Air Force? What about being a fighter pilot? I thought that's what you wanted to do. What are you doing about that? Blah, 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 blah. And I knew if I went back to DC that I would probably get entangled to the point where I wouldn't come back. Like that would be the next stepping, and then that would lead to something else. And then the next thing I know, I probably would still be living in
That's
Washington,
natural
DC
progression
doing
sometimes, yeah.
political consulting or something, or lobbying or something, right? So don't be afraid to say no. If something's taking you away from the direction that you want to move, and you may get pressure. I remember getting pressure from family at times because they didn't understand the politics piece of things to move in other directions, because that's what made sense to them. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. That's not where I'm going. That's not where I'm headed. I need to stay over here. This is my lane. This is the lane I need to be in right now. So the other thing that I would say too is don't be afraid to say no if you have something that's trying to pull you away from the direction that you're trying to move into.
Well, that goes into being an informed decision maker. You know, you take in all of the information that you can, you make a pros and cons list, and you make the best decision that you have or that you can with the information that you have. And my story's not that dissimilar. You know, I was 8 years enlisted. I was going to get out of the Air Force, had a master's degree, had a young family. My youngest son had just been born. He was 2 weeks old when I got the call that said I got selected to go to officer training school. And that was a 7-day discussion at my house, because we knew that if we chose that, we were planting the flag and we were going to be in it for the long haul. We're going to make the military a career, and there's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of pros and cons to that. So we literally took out a notebook, drew a line down the middle, and went pros and cons. And for 7 days, we weighed that decision. Katie and I, we had 7 days to make the decision. 7 days I had to sign the paper, yes or no. And at the end, we made the decision to stick with it because the pros outweighed the cons. And that just went down to informed decision-making. But that opportunity was created by the preparation on the front end of going to school, having a good reputation. All of my marks were really good. I had 5 EPRs the whole time. I'd set myself above my peers to a point where when that opportunity did come up and I put in that package, it looked really good to the guys that were reviewing it, and they offered me a flying job. Yeah. And that's really just, I mean, go back to the opener where we were talking about dumb luck and timing. That's really how it happened.
Yeah. And one thing that you mentioned there, which I've done so many times in my life, I can't even probably count them, is if you guys aren't in the habit of at key decision points, sitting down with a piece of paper and making a column that says pros and a column that says cons,
it's a must.
And thinking through that, that is a great exercise that you can use to really get a sense of whether this is a good direction for you to move into or not.
Well, yeah, you can be lured by the bright, shiny object sometimes. Like, oh, we're going to give you a $5 an hour raise. Okay, well, what's that mean? Well, we're going to give you $5 an hour raise, but you're going to be cleaning toilets. Yeah, okay. It's not worth it to me. Or maybe it is. I don't know. You have to pros and cons that shit. And that's exactly that's been our technique since, Katie and I have used that technique for 26 years now. We take out a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, go pros and cons.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so understand who you are, believe in what you offer, and outwork those around you. We talked about getting in the arena. We've talked about that before. Get out of your comfort zone.
You got to try new shit sometimes.
Dude, you got to try it. And like we said before, too, sometimes knowing what you don't want to do is just as important as knowing what you do want to do. So if you're one of those cats out there that hasn't really figured it out for himself yet, and you don't really know which direction you want to go, start trying things. Like step out of your comfort zone, move in a direction that you think aligns with the values or the interests that you have, and give it a shot.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, that's okay. But now you know that that's not the direction that you need to move.
Yeah.
Find another opportunity, move in another direction.
Yeah. And I go back to the foundation of it. If you're always looking for the next thing, always looking at the horizon and saying, what's over there? Then that keeps you curious. That keeps you engaged. That keeps you trying new things. That keeps you learning new skills and preparing and putting in the work and doing all those little things. And all this shit adds up, right? It's all cumulative. It all just kind of adds up over time. And eventually, hopefully, probably, you're going to find something you really enjoy that's giving you a lot of fulfillment in life, and that's what you take off as your profession.
Yeah, and if you're sitting there with an opportunity in front of you and you're going, man, I don't know, should I obviously do the pro and con thing? But what I would say, too, is what I found in my life through these situations is it's typically an evolutionary process. And a lot of times there may be an opportunity that I've stepped into, and as I've gotten into it, I've realized that it's really not what I wanted or where I wanted to be. But inevitably, by just doing the work, inevitably through that process, I've learned something about myself. I've learned a new skill that's helped me. I've learned something
that's going to pile on.
That piles on. And then inevitably, too, a new opportunity arises. And then I step into that one and I shift away. And then that one is like, oh, this is really good. This is exactly where I want to be. And so it kind of, like you were saying, it stacks upon itself. But you've got to take the chance. You've got to step out.
Yeah.
You've got to take the chance, have that courage over comfort, and move into things if you're ever going to get that.
Well, Wayne Gretzky said it better than any of us could say it. We could wrap this whole segment up.
That's true.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. If you sit there and you shit in one hand and want in the other one, see which one fills up faster.
Yeah, that's
right?
for sure.
Take the shot, man. So what if you miss? That Michael Jordan's famous for saying, I fail, therefore I succeed. Shit like that. So you got to stick your neck out. Sometimes it's going to get lopped off, but you regroup. You learn from the failure. You learn from the opportunity that existed. Maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe it does. And maybe you find something that truly gives you that fulfillment and that happiness that you're looking for in your life.
Yeah. All right. Next step is to stay curious and remain open.
Yeah. Well, we kind of hit on that in the last one is try new things, man.
Yeah, well, what I would say too is I think sometimes, especially if you do have a specific goal that you're focused on, is it's super easy to get what we talk about in the military all the time, or at least in the fighter world, is channelized attention. And what channelized attention is you see the target and all you focus on is the target, and you get channelized. All your attention gets focused on getting the pipper on the thing so that you can drop the bomb on the thing, and you're not paying attention to anything else. And next thing you know, on your attack, you're blowing through altitudes and airspeeds, and all these bad things are happening.
You missed the bing bong in the back that was telling you that you were getting shot.
Yeah, you have no essay at all about everything else that's going on around you. So it's good to have a goal. It's good to have something that you're driving towards, but stay curious in the sense that if that's not working out, you're not so channelized on this is the only path that I can take to get there, that you continue to march down a road that's just not going to work or that's not working out for you.
I go back to that quote that I just read out of the book and talking about what's on the next horizon. So that kind of keeps, like, one thing that we used to talk about flying fighters was cross-check. That keeps your cross-check moving. Yeah. That keeps your eyes scanning. That keeps your ears open so that you don't get channelized on this one thing. And let's say you take the opportunity. And in your example, you got this channelized attention on this opportunity, and that's all you're focusing on. If that opportunity fails, now you're going to be in a world of hurt because you don't have an exit strategy. Whereas if you kept your eyes on the horizon, you're looking towards the next thing. And guys, I'm not, when we're talking about this kind of stuff, at least for me, I'm not talking about, take that new opportunity, take that new job tomorrow. And then the next day, right after your onboarding process, you're looking for an upsell or a new product. Man, you may have to stick with this for, 6 to 9 months, a year, 2 years, something like that. Give yourself a chance here. Like, go back to stay curious. Give yourself a little bit of time for it to marinate. It may suck right off the bat because it's probably going to be a fire hose of information. You're probably going to be doing a lot of queepy, dumb shit in the beginning, especially as the new guy, the low guy on the ladder. That's expected. So don't give up on it so quickly that you don't get the opportunity that it actually was.
Yeah. All right. So after staying curious and remaining open, the next thing to do is to be decisive. So make that pro and con list, figure out if that opportunity is right for you. And then if it is, dude, step into it and step into it.
You got to pull the trigger, man.
Yep. Pull the trigger, prepare and show up with a positive mental attitude.
I'm not saying go out and shoot people. That's not the metaphor that we're talking about here.
No. And just realize that you can make great decisions with an understanding of yourself and your values. And then when you add your skills and a little bit of self-confidence on top of that, you're going to do really good work.
Yeah, that pros and cons list is going to tell you a lot.
It is.
Because if you understand all those things about yourself and you start to really get down into the pros and cons, that's going to be reflected in the 2 columns.
Yeah,
it really will. Because,
again, why self-inspection and knowing your values is so important.
Yeah, I mean, they're offering you a $5 amount, a raise, a $5 an hour raise, but they're asking you to work 20-hour days. If one of your values is family time, then that probably doesn't align with your values and it goes in the cons list. So that I think those are going to reflect very nicely if you go back and you do the work on the front end, the preparation of yourself, then I think you'll be able to make a good informed decision. When it comes time to make that decision, do it and walk through it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't look behind you. Real men don't look at explosions, right?
Yeah. And then last, I just wanted to talk a little bit about opportunity in the midst of adversity, because a lot of times, and we talked about this in the resilience episode 10, a lot of times in life, I think there's a lot of opportunity. We're in the midst of some really serious adversity. And a lot of people miss those opportunities because when they're in adversity, what they see is obstacles instead of opportunity. And so give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, in the pregame, we were talking about Marcus Aurelius talked about the obstacle being the way, and how the obstacle presented in front of you, or the adversity presented in front of you, you either choose to go around it or through it, over it or in it. Kind of mentality. And Ryan Holiday's a kind of a modern day stoic, modern day philosopher, and he wrote a book out there called The Obstacle is the Way. And he's talking about exactly this. If you look at the obstacle for what it is, let me give you a real world example of this. I'm having a conversation with my oldest son, Tyler, the other day, and he's going through a really rough phase in his life where he just went through a bad breakup, and he's learning how to do things on his own again. He's been living with a young lady for a really long time, and naturally he's bummed out, right? And he's trying to reinvent himself after being a couple for years now. He's trying to learn how to do things on his own. This is a tremendous adversity in his life. So I'm talking to him on the phone the other day, and I said, Tyler, okay, let's just step back and take a 30,000-foot view of this real quick. Yes, this sucks, okay? Go through the grieving process. You're allowed to do that. But I also want you to recognize the opportunity that's been presented to you. You live by yourself now. You don't have kids running in and out of the house every day, all night, trying to get people ready for bedtime. You don't have a noisy environment anymore. You don't have all these distractions. So you sleep 8 hours a day. You work 8 hours out of the day. You go to the gym for an hour. What are you doing with the other hours in your day? You can use that time now to complete some new courses. Get your Security Plus certification. Go to an off-site work camp or seminar or something like that, and start to really use this time to your advantage, because you don't know how long this is going to last. You don't know how finite this situation is going to be, and you can really use this obstacle as an opportunity to propel yourself onto another plane here.
Yeah, that's so good, because the first thing I would say is adversity is always going to be there. And if you don't think it's going to happen to you, then you're just a fucking idiot. Let's just be honest, right? You're going to go through hard things in your life. Not a question of if, it's a question of when. But you're also equipped to adapt, right? So overcoming, and this is just like we talked about in resilience, when you have adversity in your life, you have 3 options. You can come out at worse, you can come out at the same, or you can come out of it better.
Whoa, what's that sound like? Didn't we do an episode the other day?
Yeah, resiliency.
Yeah, there you go.
Just like you're talking about with Tyler, right? Look for the opportunities in that adversity to come out better on the other side. What is it that you can do to improve the situation? What is it that you can do to improve your own skill sets? What is it that you need to learn about yourself in this environment, and takeaways that you can have so that you can come out of it better than you were when you moved into it?
Yeah.
Because if you just try to avoid it, you're not going to get the change that you need or the change that you want to have in your life. And what most likely will happen is you're going to end up in a similar situation further down the road, because until you learn the lesson, life typically is just going to keep punching you in the face with it.
One of the quotes in my book was, life will continue to present you the opportunity to learn a lesson until you actually learn the lesson.
Yep.
And that's on you, man. If it takes you 10 times, it takes you 10 times. Some of us are more hard-headed than others. And we've all started in that show where it feels like you're beating your cranium against the wall sometimes, but you look back. I wrote a whole book. It's called No New Lessons for a reason, right? There's not a single thing in that book that I hadn't learned previous or been presented the opportunity to learn previously. But the last thing that I had written down, I know you had a couple extra notes, but the last thing on my list was, we've talked in the past about mindfulness and some of these practices that you can use to become aware of your surroundings, more aware of your thoughts and your feelings and your actions and your behaviors, etc. But part of that too is being hyper aware to these opportunities that arise. I'm coming out of the sim one day. I had just done a sim with the ops group commander. Walking out of the sim, walking down the hallway, he's lagging behind. He found somebody to talk to, as group commanders are prone to do sometimes. I get to the end of the hallway, and I stopped in my tracks, and I went, you know what? This is a great opportunity right now. And I went back, and I shook the guy's hand, and I said, hey, I want to ask you a question, all right? My son is trying to apply for the Air Force Academy. Would you mind giving him an interview and potentially writing a letter of recommendation for him? Hell yeah, dude. Bring him over to the house. So through a few texts and emails, we end up at the ops group commander's house on a Saturday morning, sitting on the porch, me and him and Caleb. We talked for a couple hours. We talked football. We talked life. We talked the Air Force. We talked fighter jets. We talk everything, right? And at the end of it, he goes, you know what? Caleb, I like you, man. I'm going to do you guys one better. He got us on the wing commander's calendar, and we sat down with the one-star general at Luke Air Force Base, and Caleb went in there with his head up, firm handshake, yes sir, no sir, talked to the guy for 30 minutes. We had some mutual connections that we explored a little bit. We got a letter of recommendation for that guy. Those two interviews made Caleb comfortable enough to where when he went and met with the senators and the representative of our district here in Arizona, he got 2 nominations to the Air Force Academy. Now, he ended up not getting selected, but look at the opportunities that were presented just by me stopping in the hallway and going, you know what? I can't miss this.
Yeah.
I gotta be uncomfortable and go ask this guy this really weird off the wall question. The worst he's going to say is no. He said yes.
Yeah.
And it ended up winning in the long run.
And I'm here to tell you, in my experience, 9 times out of 10, most people are going to be very willing to help. Most people are going to be very willing to have that conversation with you. You know, they may, because what do they have to lose in it, right? I mean, most folks are going to be willing to step out, and that's why seeking out a mentor and stuff like that, it may be scary to go approach somebody that you don't really know. But if you do and start asking questions, you're going to find what I found in my life is 90% of the time, those people are going to be more than willing to sit down and have a cup of coffee with you and help.
That doesn't mean that you're going to get the letter of recommendation at the end.
It doesn't.
That's on you.
That's on you.
You have to show up.
You still have
to be prepared. You have to be articulate and you know, you have to do your part.
Yeah.
But if you do your part and you do it well, that person will probably stick his neck out for you.
Yeah. If Caleb had showed up in his Crocs and pajama pants, hadn't shaven for a week with his hair all undone and smelled like shit, then the dude's probably not going to give you the letter of recommendation. So you still got to do your part.
100%. He looked. In fact, we had that discussion before we left the house of, you know, what are you going to wear? How are you going to present yourself? What are you going to say when you meet the guy? You know, we kind of coached through all the steps of the process there. But for the kids out there, for the young men out there who don't have a dad living in the same house with them that's going to coach them through some of these things, guys, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to CAS. I bet you that there's somebody in your close circle who has a dad that would be willing to help you out, or reach out to maybe a trusted supervisor or somebody like that. So the bottom line is, find somebody that you can have these conversations with. I'm more than willing to have a conversation with anybody about this stuff.
Yeah, me too.
The onus is on you. I got a couple of kids that I'm mentoring right now that they're just not doing the work. I'm coaching them and I'm talking to them and I'm giving them all these little nuggets, but you still got to go to the gym.
Yeah,
you still have to go on the treadmill.
Up to you.
You still have to study. You know, it comes down to your individual effort. And kind of a pile onto this is we've talked about previously about competition. And I say, like, everything's a competition, man. Like you're competing, if nobody else, you're competing with yourself, but everything's a competition. If you go into it like that, I was listening to this podcast the other day that had Erin Andrews on it. And she said that she's been really drilling down into what makes some people have the juice and some people don't. And what is that? And one of the things she threw out there was competition kills complacency. And man, I wrote that down in my notebook and circled it a couple of times, because what competition, if you have this competitive mindset, this competitive mentality about yourself, you're always looking to improve. You're always looking to try a little bit harder. You're always looking to do just a little bit more and edge out that other guy, so that now you're at the front of the line, man.
Yeah. And I think it's really important what you said first too. And that's really make the competition with yourself, compete with a stand in your head.
Yeah.
And, make yourself better. Do things to put yourself ahead. Do things to make yourself. If you do that stuff with yourself, you are going to automatically, in a lot of ways, set yourself apart from a lot of the people that are around you.
This is how you create opportunities.
There's not that many people in this world that are willing or have done the work to do that, and to do that on a regular basis. And if you want to be a high-performing person, these are just the things that you have to do.
Well, when you go back to the opener where we're talking about what is an opportunity? How do you either recognize or create an opportunity? This creates opportunities by focusing on your own personal standard and making that personal standard. Now, there's a trap there. There's a trap with the personal standard. When you set that personal standard very high, and I have a recent example, Caleb at ROTC, he was going on about how he had set this standard for himself. He got a lot of good positive feedback, and I told him immediately, I said, dude, now the challenge is you have to maintain that. Yeah. Because the second that you take your foot off the gas, I just talked to Colin for 25 minutes on the phone. He's in basic training right now. He's the dorm chief. He just scored a 98 or something on his PT test. Like, the guy's kicking ass, right? And I said, well, now it's on you. You have to maintain that. Yeah. You take your foot off the gas for a second, and people are going to notice that. Right. So you have to keep that work up. I don't want to say it's a double-edged sword, but there is some. No, there is. There's some backlash or kickback from that.
Yeah, you definitely have to maintain it.
Yep.
Because kind of once you set that, that becomes the expectation for you.
That's right.
And you have to meet or, and you have to continue to meet or exceed.
That's not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing.
But there are no days off.
No, and it's hard sometimes.
It is. Yeah.
And one thing I would add to that too is, because we've talked about preparation, and this is a little saying that I enjoy, it's the separations and the preparation. You want to separate yourself, be more prepared. You want to separate yourself, prepare like crazy. You win by being prepared for situations. And the more preparation you put into it, when things start to go sideways, the better prepared you are, the better capable you are of, shifting, making good decisions, and bringing everything back onto the rails.
That's awesome, dude. What a great conversation about. I don't know if you guys can tell, but part of it is what'd you call that?
Komodo dragon.
Komodo dragon. Holy shit, man. Whew. I just swallowed all the grounds at the bottom of it. So now I'm like I got hit with a bolt of lightning. But I don't know if you can tell, but Cass and I both really get energized about this kind of stuff. Like, there's palpable energy in the room right now, because I love talking about this shit. I love getting the young people fired up about this. I had a kid on the phone just like last week, and my mom was sitting in the living room, and she goes, well, did you give him a chance to talk? Because all she heard was me yelling through the telephone, because I'm in coach mode, man. I'm like getting fired up. And and because at the end, the Be One Change One podcast, we want to see you guys win.
We do.
We just want to see you guys win, man, whatever that looks like. I want to see you win. I want to see you become a better version of yourself and fucking crush, man. I just want to see you win. I want to see you crush the enemy and crush your adversaries.
Yeah, and have some confidence in yourself. And the other thing just to piggyback on that, I would say too, is we're not blowing sunshine up your ass. Like, this is the shit that we had to fucking do every day for 20 years, right? This is how Roscoe and I lived our lives and still do to a large extent every day in the fighter squadron. I mean, you have to perform, you have to show up, you have to be prepared, you have to do all of these things. You have to seek out opportunity. You have to look for mentors. You know, you know those IPs that you trust and the IPs that you don't. You know who to ask the questions to. You know, you have to step out. You have to be courageous. When you're going through upgrades, there's all of like we did all of this for so long, and that's how we performed at a super high level for as long as we did and had all the success that we had.
Yeah. How about this? You walk in Monday and you see you're on the scheduling board with the wing commander on Thursday. You know, dude, I got 3 days to get my shit together so that I look like a fucking rock star in front of the wing commander. Because guess who writes your promotion review board?
Yeah,
the wing commander.
It's not just that, right? Because it's not just.
But that's an opportunity.
Yeah, but you're also representing the squadron, and so
That's
like
true.
a lot of what he's going to take away from that sortie is how's the squadron doing? What's the kind of level of instruction here, and how well are these guys performing? Like, there's so much that rides on things like
You
that.
go in there with a wrinkled ass flight suit and your patches on upside down.
Yeah.
That's a reflection on you. And when it comes time for promotion, maybe you're not at the top of the list.
That's right.
But if you go in there prepared and, you know, you got a good night's sleep, you studied the targets the night
Squared away,
before.
good brief, good execution, solid debrief.
So as we get ready to wrap up here, the parting shot for me is going to be in the wrap up is do the fucking work. You do the work on the front end so you get the opportunities and the accolades on the back end. And the second piece of that is draw that circle on a piece of paper, write the word comfort in it, and all of this shit lives outside of that circle.
Yeah, totally. I can't tell you how many people I've seen in life who sit there and wait for something to drop into their lap, and that's not how this works. You have got to step out. You have got to get in the arena. You've got to choose courage over comfort, and you got to take a risk. You got to take those chances and believe in yourself when you do it. The chance is worth it. You're going to learn something. You're going to get something out of it, and there's probably another opportunity that's waiting at the end of it. So have the courage to step out, be bold, be confident, and go get it.
You heard that saying, the good things come to people who wait?
That's a bunch of bullshit.
The good things that come to people who wait is the shit left over from the guys that got there first. So guys, get out there, do the work, get there first.
Yeah.
Parting shots.
Be the one.
Be the change. Thanks for flying with the Be One Change One podcast. If you got something out of this show, then be the one and share it in your circles of influence.
You can be our wingman through our website at www.be1change1.com. That's B and the number 1, change and the number 1.com.
We invite you to be the one and join our fighter squadron on social media at Be1Change1 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can follow us at Paul Roscoe White on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as Roscoe's website, www.paulroscoewhite.com.
You can email us from the website, and please leave comments, share, and ask questions, or leave ideas of things you would like to discuss on future podcasts. Most importantly, be the one that helps us win the algorithm by leaving a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Thanks for joining. Until next time, be the one.